Perhaps backed into a corner by 2 years of record migrant surges, President Biden revealed expanded border control measures today in a White House speech. This is what he said in part.
The actions we're announcing today will make things better, but will not fix the border problem completely. There's more that has to be done. I laid that out in the first week I was here. That work will not be done unless and until the Congress enacts and funds a more comprehensive immigration plan that I proposed on day one.
Doesn't quite sound like he's ready to embrace the problem and deliver a solution. Looks like he's pointing to Congress. Joining me now to discuss this is Chad Wolf. He is the former acting secretary of the Department of Homeland Security in the Trump administration, is now the chairman for the Center of Homeland Security and Immigration at the American First Policy Institute. Chad, welcome back to the program. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you, Tony.
Your reaction to the president's speech today?
Well, I listened to the president's speech, and it was, quite frankly, a little confusing and contradictory in times. There were three main parts to his speech and the measures that he outlined there. First was he's requesting more asylum officers and more immigration judges. And so what I take from that is he wants more individuals to process illegal aliens into the country. And this is the strategy that they have been undertaking for the past 24 months. And so he wants to double down on that. It's the wrong way and it's the wrong approach. The second one was he wants to extend Title 42 to new populations. This is the same president and the same administration that has said out loud that they do not support Title 42. And in fact, they're before the Supreme Court arguing back in February coming up to dismantle Title 42. So if your strategy depends on extending Title 42, but yet you're saying you need to eliminate it, I'm not sure what kind of strategy that is at the end of the day. And then the third piece is this parole program, a parole program that they instituted back in October for Venezuelans that they claim have reduced the number of Venezuelans coming into the country, which may be true, but the overall numbers continue to increase month after month. So 233,000, I believe, in the month of December. So while they may be limiting the number of Venezuelans coming in, other populations and other demographics are filling that void. So I don't think that the measures that he outlined today are really going to be altogether that impactful. And so I don't hold out a lot of hope. This is a little bit too little too late. They need a lot more dramatic actions to get the border under control.
Is this just kind of smoke and mirrors, if you will, just to try to deflect some of the angst that's coming forth from the American people and some of their own Democratic governors in these blue cities that have now been the recipients of busloads of migrants that have been brought over, compliments of Republican governors?
I think that's right, although it's hard to really understand. I think the president was asked, why now? Why is he going to the border now? And he gave some strange answer that he didn't want to go to the border until he understood where Title 42 stood in the courts, which is a very disjointed response. There's no reason that he could not have gone earlier down to the border to talk to the men and women of the Border Patrol and to really understand what's going on, aside from what's going on with Title 42. So it didn't really make any sense or going forward. So I think other parts of the speech and other parts of the plan were, again, confusing. He talked about gang violence in Central America is why people were coming to the border for asylum. Someone needs to tell the president that under U.S. law, simply gang violence is not a basis for asylum. It's persecution by your government. And so there are some fundamentally factual things that the president got wrong. And I think in doing so, I think he kind of signaled to the American people that they're not serious about a strategy and a plan. It really felt like they pulled this together at the last minute. It feels like his visit to El Paso, same place that Kamala Harris went, is at the last minute on his way to Mexico City. And so I don't feel like it's a real effort to really understand what's going on.
You know, Chad, I have to think that you are very frustrated with some of the things you hear from the administration, because I find it disingenuous, having gone to the border a few times, and certainly not down there like you were, but I was there during the Trump administration, and I saw a transformation that took place with the policies that were adopted that simply sent people back to Mexico. And when my last trip to the border during the Trump administration, it was like a ghost town. They weren't processing anybody. There was a handful of people that were coming across. So for this administration to say they inherited a broken system to me just does not stack up to the facts.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, that's a statement that they have been using now for almost 2 years. But to your point, Tony, it's devoid of facts. If you actually look at what we did during the Trump administration, is not only did we initiate new policies, but we actually built on previous ones from previous administrations. So if the Biden administration really wants to get a hold of the border and get some control and bring some order back to the chaos, then they'll look to what worked. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel, which is what it seems as though they're trying to do. They could just go back to policies and programs and plans that actually work. Instead, they want to talk about a parole system where they're going to parole up to 30,000 individuals from now Cuba, Haiti, and Nicaragua into the United States. And what they didn't say, and what the president didn't say, is by doing that, they are basically saying that these individuals have no claim to asylum. Because if they did, they would go through the asylum system that the U.S. has set up. Instead, they're going to be paroled into the U.S. for any number of years. There's no long-term solution there. They're not filing asylum. They're not here. They don't have a hearing before an asylum officer. They're not going before an immigration judge. And so that he's abusing the parole authority, just like a previous administration abused deferred action when they created DACA. And so I think this is a program that's going to be challenged in court.
Chad, just 30 seconds left, but politics aside, your biggest concern with this porous border?
I think it's the national security interest and the public safety concerns and threats that we see along that border every day. For those of us that work down there and that understand that, that is not reported on a lot in the news and in the numbers that we see here, but we know that Border Patrol agents are coming up against some very deadly and dangerous individuals. And the more that they're in processing facilities and not on the line, the more risk that the country is at.
All right. I would agree with that. Chad Wolf, great to see you. Happy New Year. Thanks so much for joining us today.
All right. Thank you.